just under a week ago, I publicly committed to completing my reviews of my final mixes, doing my mastering and getting my album released on the 1st of August. And how am I going? Well, I'm getting there, but it's probably been one of the most challenging and the biggest learning experiences of my musical journey thus far, but we are getting there. So in this video, I'm going to give you an update on how the final mixes are going, what the next steps are, and what the final things we need to do to get all of these mixes and all of these album tracks ready to be released on the 1st of August. So let's go. Hi, my name is Pete. This is Studio Live Today, where I help you create, record and release your best music. And at the moment, in the last week at least, it's been very focused on me creating my music, but hopefully by watching over my shoulder as I've been doing some of these processes and been reviewing my mixes, you've been learning a few hints and tips along the way. That's definitely the intention of this series, as well as kicking me in the butt and making sure that I actually do it. So where are we at now? Well, we have all of my final mixes are very super close to being done. I'm about to jump in and start mastering, which I'll talk about in a moment about how I'll be doing that. But where I'm at the moment is I'm listening to my tracks in as many locations as possible. So I just went out for a walk to grab some lunch and I was listening on my iPhone. So I have my final mixed versions of my tracks on my iPhone. I was taking notes because there's a few tracks that need a couple of little tweaks. So I'm going to dive back into GarageBand offline. I won't make you watch that because you've watched plenty of that mixing process, but there's a couple of things. So I noticed one of the guitars in my song Sin is too crunchy and too loud. So I just need to dial down either the compression or the volume on that one. There's another track where, I can't remember which one, it's in my notes. There's another track where there's a little bit of noise just at the very start of the track, which I need to automate out or remove in some way. So there's just these final things where I'm just listening with a really critical ear to find out. So I've listened on earbuds now. I've listened on my studio monitor speakers. I've listened on my Sennheiser HD280s, wherever they are. And I haven't quite listened in the car yet, but I've listened on my home theater system. So they're all good reference points, especially the home theater system, because if you've got some low bass sounds, some subsonic bass sounds that you won't hear in earbuds or even sort of 4-inch or 5-inch monitor speakers, if you play it through a system that has a subwoofer, you are going to hear that if it is present. So another good tip if you are listening to reference your mixes. So where we're at now is that I need to go in and make those final tweaks. And then what I've actually done, I've done this already, so I've used iTunes file sharing to copy across my final WAV files. So I've exported, and I'll link to videos in the description that show you how to do all of these things, and probably up in the top there as well. So I've exported all of my WAV files and my project files. I've made sure I've backed up my project files. I've exported my WAV files. I've copied them into my iTunes and then put them in a playlist, which I can then share to my iPhone and any other device that I want to. And I've got those WAV files on my PC now as well. So I'm all good. If anything, fingers crossed it doesn't, but if anything goes wrong, I've got complete backups of that. So, but now what I need to do is I'll make these tweaks to the mixes in GarageBand, and then I'll go ahead and re-export any WAV files that I need to, so that in the end, I'll have a collection on my drive here. So on my iPad, in the Files app under GarageBand, I'll have a collection of all of my files. So you've seen that in previous videos where I've got that album. Just created another folder where I'm dumping in those WAV files, and you'll see what that all looks like when we get to the mastering process, which brings me to a good segue. Brings me to a segue? You know what I mean. A good segue into the mastering process. So I asked questions early on in the process, and when I mean early on, I mean like 5 days ago, about how you'd like me to master this. And overwhelmingly, folks wanted to see it in iOS. So I have investigated and I've done my research and I've looked at all of the different plugins based on your recommendations. So thank you everyone who provided feedback. And what I've decided to go with is Final Touch. Now, this is going to be both very cool, but also very risky, because I have never used Final Touch before. So what I've done this morning is I sat down and I watched about an hour's worth of tutorial videos, and I've dumped one of my tracks into Final Touch and just been playing around with it. So I'm getting my head around how it works. It seems to be pretty intuitive. There are some presets in there that can give me a head start, because let's be honest, I'm mastering 12 tracks in like 6 hours. I'm not going to be able to go and fine tune every setting. I am going to have to start with some presets. So in the next video, I'm going to be sitting down with Final Touch, and you can join me as I discover, as I master my very first track, and then I'm going to go away and master a bunch of other tracks. And then, of course, you will see the end result of all those tracks. So if you would like to see that, if you're interested in the mastering process, and if you want to see the app Final Touch, which is, look, it's not expensive, it's $30 Australian. I think it's about $20 US. I'm not sure on the euros or the Great British pounds, but it's not free. And I do really focus on trying to do things in free platforms. That's why I use GarageBand so much. But just on the surface of touching Final Touch, pardon the pun, it seems to do us a whole lot more. So we're not just talking throwing a limiter on there and maybe a bit of EQ. We've got multi-band EQ. We've got a nice maximizer at the end that we can put in there. We've got some mastering reverbs and stereo width enhancement. So the key is going to be for me not to go nuts. The key is going to be to keep it simple, because that's been my number one learning through this whole process, is keep it simple. And I'm going to continue to try and keep it simple by not overdoing it, because the key thing with mastering, and we'll talk about it in the next video, but the key thing with mastering is do no harm. Ian Shepherd, who's one of my favorite mastering engineers, he uses that as his sort of cornerstone, which is do no harm. Do not make the mix worse than when you started, because it's very easy to get carried away, very easy to not keep it simple and do a lot of complicated things that you think sound good at the time, but combined, they all just make it sound like a big dog's breakfast. So hopefully I won't be doing that. Anyway, that is going to do it for this video. Sorry there's no sort of demonstrating or explaining in this one, but I just wanted to bring you up to speed with where we are at, so that you know when we dive straight into mastering in the next video here at Final Touch, you'll know what we're doing and why, and then we can get on with the last couple of items that we need, getting ready to get this album uploaded and released. Thanks again for watching. If you've got comments, questions, or suggestions, leave those down below, and I'll see you on the next video. Hey, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate everyone's support right throughout this process. If you'd like to check out some more videos, there are 2 linked down below. You can also subscribe to the channel by clicking on the Studio Live Today icon in the top right, or head over to studiolivetoday.com for more audio goodness.